we're in an interesting place for World of Warcraft generally. There's a cohort of people who have been playing the game, they've been playing the game almost non-stop through BFA, through Shadowlands, right? The people who, even if we grumbled, we vaguely stayed around. And, we tasted the experience. And then there's the people who have not done any of that, or maybe just didn't care or didn't really play the endgame stuff. And I've noticed an interesting phenomenon. So I've been reading loads of YouTube comments and also trying to analyze the performance of not only our content, but other creators in different sub-niches of World of Warcraft and seeing what actually kind of like goes big and gets the views. Now, the reason why I do that is because those views represent inherent audience interest, right? So think of the YouTube algorithm as being a bit like weird Tinder, but for videos. The YouTube...
Jesus Christ.
Brutal, right?
Jesus.
But you know what it's like? We have technically ABC testing now in our thumbnails, but on the YouTube platform, whether, a video that you don't think about and you just happen to not click it, it'll be less likely to show you that. So what we have seen is an increase in World of Warcraft generalist content views, right? That's increased. What is interesting is diving into topics that for people who are very close, to the game, like us, are interesting, like the Mythic Plus changes. Those barely achieve cut-through. Now, talking about something far more broad, UI changes, some big story things, that gets cut through. And it does show a general uptick in Warcraft interest. I don't know if it's people coming back to the game and they don't really have enough of a toehold to find something like Mythic Plus changes to be interesting. So it's one of those things. We have some numbers. We've seen some trends. You can't really make a firm determination as to why. It is still educated, like reading tea leaves. I suppose my current hypothesis is very broad, general interest Warcraft going stronger and stronger and stronger. I'm seeing that some of that more niche stuff, it's not that it's declining or anything. It's more that it's like staying a bit more flat. And in a way that makes sense. New expansion, lots of marketing budget, like multiple flashy new trailers. I mean, the flippin' beta got a cinematic. That's not normal. So that has definitely re-engaged a broader cohort of World of Warcraft people. I think that extends beyond those of us who have actually quite solidly been there for the last while. And therefore we see these Mythic Plus changes that we're about to talk about. And, whenever this happened, we're all messaging each other in Discord like, holy fuck, game saved. Or, oh my God, it's so over. Whatever it is.
The two possible states of being.
Yeah,
yes,
there's only two states.
Of course, yes, we're still back and it's over. Nothing else matters. There's no in between.
So I just thought that's been interesting in terms of trends. To us, this is fascinating and I love talking about this. It has struggled to capture as much of the audience that I would have expected given the uptick in performance of very generalized content. And I mean, there's certainly a few hypotheses as to why. I think it just shows there are people who are disconnected from this type of story who are actually considering Warcraft content again. Now, that's a really good sign.
Yeah, I mean, that's off the back of, obviously, Plunderstorm and Mob Remix. Yeah. And also the fact that they're including Delves as an example for solo players.
And our Delves video did really well.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, yeah. So I think like there's the I'd say they're like reaping the fruits of what Holly has been sowing. At least when she talks about the mid-core and the casual and the kind of thing where they're actually trying to make a game a little bit more for them than they are for, for when they're stuck in the like, I guess I'd say stuck in the M+ minds, stuck in the iterating on the existing pillars of content they have to make them better. It's the kind of thing of, it turns out you can, if you're making, let's go food analogy time.
Yeah.
If you're making pizza, you can make, pizza's maybe a bad example because a lot of people love it. But, you say you're making pizza.
And remember, you got to follow Gemini's advice. Always keep your glue close to hand when you're making pizza. so that your toppings don't slide off.
Yes. So instead of deciding that maybe we'll put food on our pizza instead of glue, no, they were doing that, and you can only do that so much. You can only optimize pizza so much before you go, well, maybe not everyone on the planet wants pizza. And
some people are wrong.
And they've kind of figured out that what they to make the analogy somehow make less sense. If World of Warcraft was an Italian restaurant, they stopped serving pasta a long time ago, or at least they let their pasta get stale and shitty. And then they're going, we've hyper optimized for pizza enjoyers.
So are we all just like, the pasta's back, boys? Pasta's back in the menu.
More or less. They went, they've made the pasta good this time. So pasta enjoyers show up. Pasta enjoyers in this case are the mid-core and the casual who don't M+ every day and don't like Mythic Grade. Turn around and go, this restaurant's good again.
Which is to say, if you've been following our content steadily since BFA or Legion, right? You're probably going to see these Mythic Plus changes and be really interested in them as we are. But if you were re-engaged generally because you heard Metzen was back, you saw a pretty cool big trailer that had the sword, and that maybe you're like, the sword, they're finally doing something. Of course, the last memories that people had with the sword were pretty positive because it was the end of Legion. That was a real high point. So they're rooted in that. World of Warcraft generally just gets way more buzz. Do Plunderstorm, do Remix. If that's what engaged you, you're not going to be as interested in this sort of M+ topic, because that's just been a thing that, us sort of always in and around the game people have been talking about for ages, but that, won't mean as much to more disconnected people who are now returning to the game, which is, extremely positive. And seeing Delves do well, it reminded me, I suppose, a bit of a contrast. Whenever BFA came out, if you were... I remember, we're going to maybe say we do a video on explaining island expeditions to people. And it would get, no views. Same for, Warfront stuff at times. And it's because there was boring features. There wasn't that much to them. People weren't interested. But now we're actually having the inverse, where the sort of traditional expected content, even if it's getting a significant and I think potentially extremely positive overhaul, people are happy about that. They're interested. Not as much as people seem to have an appetite for basically for Delves, to see how they actually are. I think that just shows what you were saying, the Delves audience. A lot of what Holly's been talking about.
Yeah, those people have been starved for a long time. They've been hungry for a long time, and now they go, well, would you like some sustenance? And they're like, yes. Funny enough, actually, yes, we would like the thing we've wanted for years.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's just very difficult to say exactly what you want.
A spark of genuine excitement that I got. So I was in... I wasn't really on top of my shit, so I ended up just feeling like I was spitting plates. A lot of news channel videos, lots of thumbnails and stuff, so my head's kind of spinning. My finger's not really as much in the pulse. You report back on how good Delves are. And that was one of those moments that was at least to me anyway, really refreshingly exciting. As in, that's when I thought, fucking hell, we might actually be back. Because, praise for a feature like that from you actually does matter. It does get cut through. Right? The way there's... it's whenever people say, it's so over, we're so back all the time. It's there's it's dead alive, dead alive, dead alive. I feel it's right. It's not to tell everybody that you just, message me Delves are the best thing ever. And you should be amazingly excited, and they're perfect. Because we did get some comments on that video that were like, oh my God, I can't believe you've got to slip in some criticisms. I'm like, man, that was a really positive video. Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
But to me, it meant something. It meant something. And that got me excited. And evidently, whenever other people are hearing that these beta experiences of Delves are refreshing, that's getting cut through to a broader audience.
Yeah, and that's exactly, I think, where Delves getting, and this is kind of interesting because I think the same thing sort of happened a little bit in the past it sort of happened a wee bit with Island Expeditions, but that was off the back of Legion, where people didn't realize that we weren't going to get lots of content for you to do all the time. Because you do Legion and you go, okay, well, we're finished Legion. I just got done playing every class because of class halls. I just got done with Argus being a fantastic patch zone. I got done with the Mage Tower existing and being really good, especially towards the end where, the more casual player could hop in really overgeared and kind of, find all of like the written guides and be able to kind of, especially for some of like the healing ones that were very much, you can use this ability at this time and you're sorted. There's a lot more of actual engagement with that. Island expeditions were sort of vaguely, sort of almost maybe sort of promising, and then they turned out to be pull everything in the island and blast it, and do it every couple times a week for your artifact power, or your Azerite power, sorry. And then the same with, you've got your, I almost forgot what it was called, Torghast in Legion, Torghast and Shadowlands, sorry. Torghast and Shadowlands, where everyone's like, Torghast, great feature for you to play by yourself and have fun. And then that turned out to be absolutely not true in any capacity, despite their best efforts, unfortunately. So I think like now that we've had the time away from that, in the Dragonflight where they go, what do you do by yourself? Fucking fly around or something. Just do Scare Vault, stuff, but not like a huge feature, right?
Oh, it
not
was
a huge
right.
back
So
of the box feature.
it was awesome. In a much like how at one point our government said, "Oh no, it's okay. We're only breaking international law in a limited and specific way." I mean, hey, if you're going to break international law, that's the way to do it. I found that the generalized Dragonflight content really worked for me in a limited and specific fashion, which is if I sat down to play that in the way that I would want to really just slurp up a video game experience. Recent ones include like Still Wakes the Deep, playing Alien Isolation, Resi 4 on professional difficulty.
That's on a horror binge.
On a horror binge. But like, so in the Resi 4 thing, I did that in professional difficulty because I want to get is it the bunny ears? So the bunny ears unlock is basically doing that game on the hardest difficulty with only 15 saves for the entire game. So like big challenge, big gamer challenge. If I was in the mood to play that and I hopped into the Dragonflight endgame, would not give a shit. But there are times when it's like brain empty, you've came home from work, you've had a puff, away you go, just vibing. That actually worked for me, but it wasn't a complete experience because it didn't have, any flipping teeth.
Yeah.
That's what has always been missing.
Yeah, and I think that actually did better for people in a lot of ways. I think that being like toothless, but being generalized, not being here's your box, climb in your box and be in your box casual player. It was the whole world is yours casual player. I think that ended up being a little bit more enjoyable to people. So them having that and not getting rid of that, because one of the things people don't talk about very much is all of the like end game and world content in the War Within, and for good reason. Because first you have to, the world isn't available on the Fresh 80 server.
Yeah.
So if you want to test endgame, you have to level, which is, that's not the most effort, but it is a good like 10, 12 hours if you don't know exactly what you're doing and you aren't speedrunning. So it does take a while to level, and then stuff doesn't always work or isn't always guaranteed to work. And there's no feedback yet on like why it doesn't work. So you'll go to like the say the theater troupe, which seems to be very reminiscent of the Shadowlands theater thing in, what's it called? I forget all of the proper nouns of Shadowlands. I've intentionally destroyed it. I've been Ardenweald. That little place. So there's that. People aren't talking about that as much, but there are people talking, like people are more interested in the delves because that's like the big thing. So having both the delves and that will also kind of go to show that the players who don't care about M+ are more likely going to be the players who will, like, they'll have more than they're even aware of going in.
Yeah.
Realistically, because it'll be Dragonflight's on-game content iterated on, plus delves as well on top of that. So like, if you want to have a full, session of gameplay without touching any group content, you more or less can do that more than you could before.
The core thing, I think, is the Soul Cinder and Ash problem is kind of gone. So
yeah,
that, as you said, that the whole world is yours gameplay, that will generate the keys that open the resplendent chests within the delves. So by doing what a lot of that player profile was doing anyway, they get to progress. There are still some concerns there about, doing a delve without a resplendent key may feel terrible. And maybe if you only get so many keys a week, you have a decision to make about when do you spend them. How does the gearing system work? What happens if you spend a key on like a level 4 delve, but then you get to a level 8 delve and you don't have a key? So there's like little quibbles and endgame gearing things, but big picture, good.